Hello, welcome back to a monumentous day at Aston Villa Football Club, where finally we can talk about the news that has broken today that Aston Villa have indeed sold their women's team effectively to themselves. Now, there is a lot to get into here, and I will add a caveat at the start and a disclaimer. I am by no means a financial expert, but I'm going to try my very, very best to wade my way through PSR, squad cost ratio information, what I think it means for the club, what I think are the immediate next steps that the club need to take to make sure that we don't find ourselves in this position again, because it is grossly unfair to be sanctioning a club that has got owners that are willing to push the top clubs in the country and try and put us on the same footing as them. And every turn we make, we get seemingly pulled back against our will. So we are and have now resorted to playing the game, which is horrible, really, because football is just money, 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 money. I would love nothing more than to come on here all the time talking about players, games, and Villa's history. The three things I love the most. But it's seemingly most of the time, especially in the summers these days, we're just talking about finances and making sure we don't get any fines and any points deductions, and we're, compliant with this rule and that rule. But it is what it is. We are where we are. We have done what we have done for a reason. So let us try and get into this information and make some kind of sense of it. If you are new around here, please drop me a subscribe, get involved in the comments, and please like this video. So let's have a look at, there's been lots of media outlets from about 1 o'clock today reporting this news, but I've got this article from, I think it's from, I've got lots of things open here. The Telegraph. It seemed as good a place as any to start. So we'll go through it bit by bit and we'll see if we can make some sense of it. So Aston Villa closing on £55 million sale of women's team to help avoid PSR breach. Midlands Club eyeing similar deal for their warehouse music venue as they seek to comply with Premier League's financial rules. Aston Villa are confident that they have avoided breaching Premier League financial rules after agreeing to sell a stake in their women's team. The sale of as much as 10% to investors could put a value in the region of £55 million on the women's team. Now, I will get into what I believe all these things mean and why we have sold a stake in our women's team, not just sold the whole lot to ourselves, essentially to a subsidiary company to show profit on the books of the side of the business that deals with the football side and the side that would get sanctioned should we not comply with the rules. But we'll get into that in a minute. Telegraph Sport reveals Villa have been working on a deal that involves selling as much as 10% of the women's team to investors with a view to selling the rest of it in the club's holding company to help them comply with the rules. It can be revealed that Villa have committed to bringing down their player costs by also 20% over the summer and next as they wait to find out whether they will be punished by UEFA. Although the June 30th accounting deadline expires on Monday, it is possible for the sale of the assets, such as the women's team, to be included in the 24-25 accounts if the sale has been agreed in principle, but the price has not been finalised. Villa's pricing of the women's team could be effectively sealed by selling a stake to investors who are thought to have held talks about buying a 10% stake in the club for £5.5 million. That would allow Villa to sell the remaining 90% of the club's own parent company, V Sports, which is controlled by Egyptian billionaire Nassef Sawiris and American billionaire Wes Edens, potentially generating around £55 in total as PSR compliant funds. It is understood that similar process has been considered for the warehouse, the club's new music and event space in the North Car Park, which potential value of £50 million. Blah, blah, blah. Right, we'll get on to SCR in a minute, but let's just delve into this a bit more, shall we? Right, I've got my notes here. So let's start with why we have done what we've done. Obviously, to avoid a breach in the PSR rules by the Premier League. So by selling it to ourselves, we've created profit, and then that profit shows on the books, and then that means that we are compliant with the rules. Is it a loophole? Yes. Now, everybody's calling it the Chelsea loophole, but it is my understanding. Now, I've known about this for a little while now, but I couldn't say anything. I know I've alluded to it on a few podcasts. But my understanding is that Villa actually have been working on this deal for a very, very long time. It is not the case that Chelsea did it and then Villa just had a light bulb moment and thought, wow, they've done that. Let's do it as well. No, we have been working on this for best part of a year, I believe, possibly longer, because it adds value to your game, your team, and it means that you aren't going to be done by the Premier League. So how did they get the value? £55 million fair value is the reported fee. Now, they do this, and this is the important part of the sale, by selling a percentage of the team, as they've said in the article there, to a third party. And then that value then values the whole entity of the women's team. So if somebody comes in and buys a 10% stake of the women's team for 10 million, then that puts the value. Villa can then argue to the Premier League about fair market value that Villa's team, somebody's bought it, an outside company's bought 10% for £10 million. So to us, that means that company, that team is worth £100 million. So they can effectively sell the rest of the 90% to a subsidiary company, allowing that valuation of £100 million. In this case, it's been mooted. It's £5.5 million for a 10% stake, which, if you round that up to 100%, means the value of the women's team is £55 million, which would be going on the books as profit. Why is this important for Villa, and why is this a big win? Now, I've seen a few people saying that we've got to be careful and we're not out of the woods yet, and that is correct, but I still firmly believe this is a big, big day for Villa and a big win for Villa. Because we are an ambitious club. We've got ambitious owners. We've got a fantastic manager. We've got a brilliant setup in the back room. We've created, over the last 2.5 seasons, some very, very entertaining squads of players, and we've put in some brilliant performances on the pitch, and we've achieved quite a lot in a very short amount of time under Unai Emery. Now, we haven't been allowed to do that competitively off the pitch. We have been hamstrung by these rules every summer, trying to comply whilst trying to build a team on the pitch that is good enough to compete at the top end of the Premier League. How have we done that? We've maxed out wages. We've took punts on players. And it's worked. It's absolutely worked. But what we've had to do for the last 2 summers is, when we've hit this 30th of June deadline, we've had to make sure we're compliant. Last year, we sold Douglas Luiz. This year, we've sold the women's team via, let's call it a loophole. So that's why we've done it. Now, does it mean we're now going to go on a massive spending spree of, like Chelsea have recently done, when they're buying player after player after player in another supermarket sweep style rampage through other teams in Europe and the Premier League, of 50, 60 million pound players in all kinds of positions, when they currently hold a squad of about 55 players anyway? You know, the Chelsea model is just absolutely ridiculous, and we certainly will not be going down that road. We will be prudent, we will be calculated, and we'll be very clever in our strategy from this point forward. It is utterly pointless doing what we've done if we're just going to go out and blow it all on a load of players. It is not going to happen. What this has allowed us to do is to regain control of our destiny. It gives us the ability now to decide who goes, who stays. No more now can we hear from anybody outside of Villa that they're going to have to sell a big name player because of PSR. They're going to have to sell a big name player because of this reason, because of that reason. No, We will sell a player now because we deem that player is surplus to requirements. Now, there's many, many reasons why a player is surplus to requirements. We know that. We understand that. It might be that they fancy a change somewhere else. It might be that Unai Emery just thinks that they've run their course at the club, that we can probably get a better player in their position, that it's time to move them on, that the level they've reached can't go any higher. So there's many, many reasons. So, but that gives us the power now to make our decisions. It buys us time. Yes, I know we've got the squad cost ratio issue, which I will get onto, but now we are clear. Now we are, we are properly okay and compliant. We can just get on with our business this summer now. And yes, we will have a budget, and yes, we're going to have to stick to that budget. But that budget now is much bigger, and any money we bring in will just add to that budget. So we might see a big name player go, but that will be a tactical decision, a well thought through decision to allow us to bring in enough money to buy a potential new player that they see as a better option going forward. And it's a sensible way to run your football club. But we're not being run by sanctions and rules and regulations. We're being run because we think this is the way to go. We're going to sell him, and him because we want to bring him and him in. And that allows us to do that. And in Unai Emery's opinion, those players will give us a better chance next season of being more successful. That is it, simply. So the other big reason why this is important for us is because it gives us another bit of breathing space to grow that revenue off the pitch, which is all important to make sure that we have got the ability when we need to go into the transfer market and buy players. Without that revenue coming in, then we can't do anything. So the improvements we've seen, yes, the ticket prices have been quite expensive for the Champions League games, and we've seen a small increase in season ticket prices. But as an entity, as a whole, everybody's got to pull their weight. And yes, people will say, well, the fans shouldn't have to pay these prices, but we have to pay a percentage of them because the owners are backing us unbelievably. The things they have done, the amount of money they've put into this football club, the way they have left no stone unturned to make sure we are compliant and give ourselves the chance to go out and buy players and improve and have another good season means that I am more than happy to put my hand in my pocket and pay the money. I'm sure there'll come a point, and everybody's got a point where they can't spend that money. But whilst they are doing what they are doing, going above and beyond, I'm just happy we've got these owners, to be honest. I'm over the moon. So, next steps, right? This is another very, very important key next steps. So as far as the squad cost ratio goes, we have got to comply with the UEFA rules, which are 80% by the end of this summer, and then 70%, I believe, by the end of next summer. Now, if I get any of these wrong, I'm sure I'll be pulled up about it, but that is roughly where we are. So I'm talking, for me, for being a layman, I'm trying to do it in as simple terms as I possibly can to make it as easy to understand for myself more than anything, and hopefully everybody listening can understand it. So we've got to cut the wage bill a bit, which will mean players will have to go. But what's important now is the Disasi, Rashford and Asensio loans have now been ended. So whilst they were on the books, they would have pushed them up massively. We've obviously let a few players leave. House's contract's run out. Olsen's contract's gone. He's been relieved of his Villa role. So the next key phase, and this is huge, nobody's talking about this particularly, and this, if we can get this done, it would make a huge difference to us going forward. Monumental difference. And that is getting the unwanted players off our books. I'm not talking about first team players that people think perhaps we should sell him, we should sell a Bailey, we should sell a Cash, we should sell a Ramsey for profit and get some profit in. We should maybe let Ollie Watkins go if somebody's after him because that'll help us, and he's on big wages. And we've got Ian Matson now, so let's let Luca Dean go because he's on big wages. I understand all that, and those are all considerations that will come after what I'm going to talk about now. And that is letting the players go that aren't at all in the picture at Villa. And when you read the list of players, The big one's Coutinho. Huge wages, but it seems to be ending now with some kind of negotiation with him and his people that he will go to Vasco da Gama, and it's just how that deal is structured. Do we have to pay him off? What does he want? Can we afford it? Is it in interests of us and them? But I'm pretty sure that one is very close to being done. And then we go into the list of players. Louis Barry. These are all players who I think need to go now. And I know some of them have got potential, and I know some of them people will be saying, no, we need to give another go. Louis Barry could be potentially a very, very good player, but he's been out on loan now for endless seasons to endless clubs, and I just don't see currently him having a future at Villa. So he goes. Lewis Dobbin has to go. Kane Kester Hayden today has gone. That's the kind of deal we need to be doing now with these players. I think it's a decent fee for him. Lino Sousa, Alex Moreno, Samuel Lilling Jr., Enzo Barranchiella, Leander Dendoncker, Emi Buendia, Kosta Nedeljkovic. Now, that is a massive list of players. I was going to try and work out roughly what their wages are. But that alone, if you just get rid of all those players for nominal fees, free transfers, small amounts, and they're happy to go, then that would free up. We would be, in my opinion, I'm no expert, and I haven't got the Villa finances in front of me. We'd be pretty compliant on all fronts. I would imagine we'd be easily 70% of squad cost ratio. So that is where the next job is. So every single one of those players we see depart Villa over the next few weeks, you might just nonchalantly think, oh, he's gone. Didn't need him anyway. These are huge, huge sales now for Villa, because it means we'll have even more power over our first team, what we can and can't do. So where we really want to concentrate, the 22 players roughly that are going to represent us next season, we need to be able to go and get what we need, do the business within that 22 that we need. And by getting rid of this bunch of players, that gives us the best possible chance. Now we've got PSR breathing room. This is the last season of PSR. It's going to squad cost ratio at the end of next season if it's voted in. But I think the clubs are currently waiting for the Manchester City. God knows when that decision is going to come. But that's going to come, because there's lots of things around this squad cost ratio in the Premier League as well, which we'll go into in a minute. So that is the next big, big decision. So that will help massively, hugely help the squad cost ratio thing. So we've apparently agreed to. So we'll go back to this bit now on here. So Telegraph Sport, first involves 10%. Is it this one or is it this one? Right, the Premier League PSR rules are not only issued for Villa, but qualify for next season's Europa League and must comply with UEFA's own financial controls, squad cost ratio rules, SCR. These put a limit on spending relative to revenue. Revenue. This is why we've got to get the revenue up. We've got breathing space to do that now. UEFA does not permit clubs to register income from assets such as the sale of women's team to related parties, and so we can't use the women's team for the squad cost ratio. That's why it's so important to get it done now with PSR. Under UEFA regulations, clubs are permitted 170 million losses over a 3-year period, and these clubs, competition required, keeping the spending on players and fees to 80% of revenue for 23-23. That drops to 70% for the most recent season. Villa have been holding talks with UEFA about a commitment to a spending plan, which means their squad cost ratio decreases this summer and next. So Villa are in talks with UEFA to basically, they're going to UEFA and saying, yes, we understand we're over, but we are doing this, this, and this to comply with those rules. So I would think and hope that the worst we're going to get for non-compliance is a fine. Obviously, if you repeat offender all the time, then those sanctions keep going up and up and up. But at the moment, for me, I think whilst it's a concern, this is all under consideration and massively under control from the club. So I'm not worried. Again, that is why I keep making the point that those set of players that we need to get off the books are so critical to the next phase of making sure that we are compliant. Revenue has to go up. It simply has to. I know I keep sounding like a broken record, and I know nobody wants to talk about it because it means we pay more money. But if we want a successful Aston Villa, if we want to be bottom of the Premier League, if we want to be League One, Championship, and not commit money to players, not commit money to wages, huge wages. I mean, if anything, we should be talking about getting a cap on wages and cap on transfer spending each summer, not anything else. That's what will drive things down, and that's never going to happen. So revenue has to keep going up. Sponsorship deals, we need better sponsorship deals. The Adidas link up's brilliant. The amount of stuff that's coming out this year that I've seen is absolutely incredible. The originals, it's just brilliant, fantastic. But next season, I spoke earlier, the squad cost ratio could be implemented in the Premier League. Now, that is going to be apparently 85%. So weirdly, it is more than UEFA. But if we're compliant with the UEFA rules at 70%, then we will be compliant with the Premier League rules with a bit of breathing space, which is good. The other interesting factor on the squad cost ratio, which could come in, is this anchoring, where they are saying it limits how much a club could spend on players' wages and transfers to 5 times the revenue of the league's bottom club receives in broadcast and prize money. So, for example, Sheffield United received 110 million last season. This means under the SCR, the spending limit will be 5 times 110, which would be 550 million pounds. Now, this isn't set in stone, as I say. They're waiting for, I think, Man City's to come in to get this. So we don't roughly know where we're going to be at with that. But in my opinion, by being compliant with PSR now, gives us a lot of breathing space to improve revenue, which then gives us a lot of breathing space that if they change the rules to squad cost ratio, then we are going to be in a fantastic position to take advantage of the new rules. We'll be revenue driven with a huge amount of revenue, hopefully coming in with a warehouse opening, an expanded Villa Park opening, continued qualification for Europe, continued improvements in the amounts of sponsorships we get. All these factors will help feed into us being able to bring in the best players. Now, our squad is at a place now where it is very, very, very good. So we want to be, over the next 2 years, in a position where we've got 22 excellent players with high market values. I know that brings some big wages, but you get rid of the others and you bring your revenue up, you're allowed to spend a bit more. So that is why it is critical. So in conclusion, I hope I've not gone on, and I hope I've made some sense. If I have, drop it in the comments. And if I've got it wrong, I'm sure you'll tell me. In conclusion, this is a very, very big day for Aston Villa, and there's no need to feel like that whatever things are coming in the future, the SCR and the UEFA sanctions, they're going to be factored in. They will know what is coming. They will know that we might get a fine for last year's breach, but they will pay that. They know. It is about compliance now, which is done. It is about compliance going forward, which has got a strategy, and it is about growing revenue to a point where we become, don't think it'll ever happen, self-sustaining. We're always going to need our owners, and we're always going to need to put money in. But for me, it is a big day, and I'm chuffed to bits we're in a position now where we can stop talking about financial fair play. Hopefully we can get some deals done, and hopefully some of these players, some of them have done well for us, but unfortunately the wages they're on, they could be difficult to shift. So I'm going to shut up now because I think I've gone on enough. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. I've tried my very best to explain it as best as I can to understand it for myself. Any questions, you can email me, Justin Talks Villa, drop a comment in the comments section, and hopefully this means we can draw a line under this nightmare scenario of PSR up the Villa. Speak to you all soon.